The Middle East is once again at the center of global tension, and the latest developments are drawing intense attention from analysts, governments, and the public. The sudden Russian strikes on Azerbaijani targets have triggered a wave of concern, not only in the immediate region but also among the major powers with vested interests in the Caucasus. At the same time, Iran's open confrontation with Armenia has added a new layer of complexity, signaling that the unfolding crisis is more than just a localized border dispute. It is part of a broader strategic chess game involving energy routes, military alliances, and geopolitical influence. To understand the current escalation, it's important to look at the underlying structure of this conflict. Russia's involvement with Azerbaijan is not entirely new. Moscow has historically maintained both cooperation and competition with Baku, especially in terms of arms sales, regional security arrangements, and influence over the Nagorno-Karabakh question. The recent strikes, however, go beyond a mere show of force. They target specific Azerbaijani military infrastructure, suggesting that Russia is sending a warning not only to Azerbaijan but to its backers, which include Turkey and, indirectly, Western powers seeking to secure alternative energy supplies to Europe. Azerbaijan, positioned strategically between the Caspian Sea and the Caucasus Mountains, plays a crucial role in the East-West energy corridor. Pipelines from the Caspian to Turkey and onwards to Europe bypass Russia, providing a vital diversification route for European energy security. This makes any threat to Azerbaijan's stability a matter of concern, not just for the region but for NATO allies. Russia's strikes, therefore, are being interpreted by many analysts as an attempt to reassert leverage over the energy flow and remind Europe that Moscow's influence can reach beyond Ukraine. Iran's position in this equation adds yet another layer of complexity. Tehran has long been wary of Azerbaijan's close military ties with Israel, fearing that Israeli intelligence and strike capabilities could use Azerbaijani territory as a launchpad against Iranian targets. In recent years, Iran has held large-scale military drills along its border with Azerbaijan as a direct message to Baku. Now, with Armenia caught in the middle, Iran's confrontation is not just about border security, it's about preventing what it sees as a creeping encirclement by pro-Western and anti-Iranian forces. The Iranian-Armenian relationship has historically been pragmatic. Despite Armenia's close ties with Russia and the West's interest in its democratic trajectory, Tehran and Yerevan share a mutual interest in bypassing Azerbaijan's dominance in regional transit. With tensions rising over the proposed Zangezur corridor that would connect Azerbaijan's mainland to its Nakhchivan exclave through southern Armenia, Iran fears being cut off from one of its few direct land links to the Caucasus and, by extension, Europe. This corridor, backed by Turkey and Azerbaijan and viewed favorably by some in the West, is seen by Tehran as a strategic threat to its influence. In the current climate, Iran's sharp rhetoric against Armenia is unusual but calculated. On the surface, it appears counterintuitive. Why confront a country that is traditionally more of a partner than a rival? But from Tehran's perspective, Armenia's potential concessions to Azerbaijan on the corridor issue could undermine Iranian access and tilt the regional balance further against its interests. Thus, Iran is warning Yerevan that siding with Baku's transit ambitions will come at a cost, both politically and potentially militarily. Russia's role in all this is not straightforward. While Moscow is Armenia's traditional security guarantor through the sea, its inaction during previous Azerbaijani advances in Nagorno-Karabakh severely damaged Armenian trust. Yet now, Russia is striking Azerbaijan while Iran is pressuring Armenia, creating an almost paradoxical situation where both Yerevan and Baku are feeling squeezed from multiple sides. For Moscow, this may be a deliberate design, keeping both parties dependent on Russian mediation while preventing either from fully aligning with Western or Turkish-led initiatives. The military performance aspects of the current situation are also worth noting. Russia's strikes on Azerbaijani territory reportedly involved precision-guided munitions, targeting radar systems and logistical hubs. This suggests that Moscow is willing to escalate beyond symbolic moves and is prepared to degrade Azerbaijan's military capabilities if it feels its strategic position is being undermined. For Azerbaijan, which has invested heavily in Turkish Bayraktar drones, Israeli air defense systems, and modern artillery, the challenge will be encountering Russian strikes without provoking a broader confrontation that it cannot win alone. Iran's military signaling is also notable. Recent troop movements toward the Armenian border, combined with ballistic missile drills, are aimed at reminding both Armenia and Azerbaijan that Iran has the capability to disrupt any corridor project that threatens its interests. Tehran's strategy here is to create a credible deterrent, while also signaling to Moscow that it remains a significant player in the Caucasus equation. However, Iran must tread carefully. Any overt military action risks triggering a response from Turkey, which has a defense pact with Azerbaijan, and potentially drawing in NATO by extension. From a design perspective, the strategic map of the region resembles a multi-layered battlefield. The first layer is the immediate territorial disputes Nagorno-Karabakh, border demarcations, and transit corridors. The second layer involves energy infrastructure pipelines, transport routes, and ports that form the backbone of economic influence. The third layer is the geopolitical overlay, with Russia, Iran, Turkey, Israel, the EU, and the US all pursuing overlapping but often conflicting agendas. Each player's moves are interconnected, meaning that a strike in one location reverberates through multiple arenas. What makes this situation unique is the degree of simultaneous pressure being applied from multiple directions. Usually, a crisis in the Caucasus involves one dominant axis of tension: Armenia versus Azerbaijan, or Russia versus Turkey. This time, however, we have Russia hitting Azerbaijan, Iran confronting Armenia, Turkey backing Baku, and the West watching closely while weighing its options. This creates a volatile mix where miscalculations are far more likely, and the potential for a sudden spiral into wider conflict is much higher. For global powers, the stakes are not limited to the immediate conflict zone. For Europe, a destabilized Azerbaijan threatens not only energy supplies, but also broader regional connectivity projects that bypass Russia. For the US, increased Russian influence in the Caucasus complicates its efforts to contain Moscow's leverage post-Ukraine. For Israel, Azerbaijan remains a strategic partner in intelligence sharing and regional balancing against Iran, meaning any threat to Baku's stability could also impact Israeli security planning. One particularly interesting performance feature of the current crisis is the information warfare component. Russian state media is framing the strikes as a necessary measure against Azerbaijani provocations, while Azerbaijani outlets highlight civilian fears and accuse Moscow of aggression. Iranian media, meanwhile, is focusing on alleged Western and Israeli plots in the region, portraying Tehran's actions as defensive rather than expansionist. In this media battlefield, narratives are as important as missiles, shaping international perceptions and influencing diplomatic positioning. The interplay between military moves and diplomatic maneuvering is also central to the unfolding events. Moscow's strikes are being paired with behind-the-scenes negotiations aimed at forcing Azerbaijan back into a more Russia-centric security arrangement. Iran's threats are accompanied by offers of increased economic cooperation with Armenia if Yerevan resists the Zangezur corridor. Turkey, for its part, is stepping up military exercises with Azerbaijan to reassure Baku of its support. This mix of hard power and soft incentives is a classic example of multi-domain strategy in geopolitics. It's also worth noting the timing. These developments come at a moment when Russia is still deeply engaged in Ukraine. Iran is under increasing Western sanctions pressure, and Turkey is navigating its own economic and political challenges. The fact that these powers are still willing to escalate in the Caucasus despite these constraints shows just how important this region remains to their strategic priorities. For them, the Caucasus is not a secondary theater, it is a key junction point that affects their influence over Europe, Central Asia, and the Middle East. In many ways, the current crisis can be seen as a stress test for regional alliances. Armenia is questioning the reliability of Russia's security guarantees. Azerbaijan is weighing the risks of leaning too heavily on Turkey and Israel. Iran is assessing how far it can push without triggering a counter-coalition. And Russia is trying to manage a balancing act between punishing Azerbaijan and not driving it entirely into Western arms. The outcome of these calculations will shape the region's political landscape for years to come. While military action is grabbing the headlines, the economic and infrastructural stakes should not be underestimated. Control over transit routes, ports, and energy corridors is arguably the main prize in this contest. The South Caucasus is a natural bridge between Europe and Asia, and whoever controls its choke points can exert significant influence over trade and energy flows. This is why the Zangezur corridor, in particular, has become such a flashpoint. It's not just a road. It's a potential shift in the region's entire economic geography. Looking at the broader pattern, one can see echoes of other conflict zones, where regional powers use local disputes as leverage in larger strategic contests. In this sense, the Rush-Azerbaijani and Armenia standoff is part of a global trend where the lines between local and global conflicts are increasingly blurred. The same dynamics that play out in Eastern Europe, the South China Sea, or the Horn of Africa, control of resources, strategic transit points, and influence over smaller states are also at work here. If the current escalation continues, the risk is not only that the conflict could spread geographically, but that it could entangle more players directly. A miscalculated strike, a cross-border incident, or a failed diplomatic intervention could bring in Turkey, Israel, or even NATO forces, dramatically raising the stakes. The Middle East and the Caucasus are already volatile regions on their own. When their fault lines intersect, the result can be explosively unpredictable. This is why many observers are urging restraint, though in practice, restraint is often the first casualty of heightened tensions. For now, The region watches as Russian missiles hit Azerbaijani targets. Iranian troops move closer to Armenia, and diplomatic channels strain to keep pace with military maneuvers. What happens in the coming days will likely determine whether this crisis burns itself out or ignites something much larger, asked ChatGPT.